It's Bruce Ferris here with Windermere Real Estate in Seattle. It's the 23rd of December, and we're going to take a quick look at the numbers for December at this point, and also take a look in comparison to the last few years and try to give a little bit of overview on what we're going to see in the next month or so. So let's first of all recognize what we're up to. We track all of the listings from 145th down to south of Othello, those 3-bedroom, 1.75 to 2-bath homes that come on market that are in the pre-1980 build range, and that gives us a fairly consistent view of the what we'll call canary in the coal mine. This is our proprietary statistics page that we track on a daily basis, and the green column are the actives. The brown and yellow columns here, or whatever that color is, are the pendings, those going off market. We have pending inspection type properties, we have all pendings, and then we have those that went off market in 6 days. So this last week we had 29, so that's the lowest number we've seen in a long time, and of course that's fairly typical for a December, and we'll take a look at some comparisons to previous years in a few minutes here. 381 total pendings available currently in the pool, and you can see that number dropping way down. I think post July 4th we had our highest surge right there. We crested the 1,000 mark, so when we're down into the 300 mark, we're considerably lower than that, obviously. Green over here also indicates a lower number, so our pending inspections total amount is at 72. We've been holding fairly steady here. Let's go ahead and change that color. In the 40s, though, interestingly, for 7 days, those that go off market, excuse me, in the last 7 days, those have gone off market. Total pendings, 347, and that's a lower number as well. I'll go ahead and give that a green here real quickly, forgive me. And then finally, what I'm going to really take a look at is this pending inspection here. Let me highlight this. And that is holding in the above 80 range, even though we're seeing the other numbers drop. Those properties that are going off market in 6 days or less are still fairly consistently holding in this range right here. And how that really impacts me over here is this number right here, 28%. So we're at 20% plus of the total amount that went off market in the last week. 24 to 28% of them went off market in 6 days or less. That's a quarter then of the pendings are going off market in 6 days or less. So we're definitely not seeing a drop there. There have been times in the year where we had as much as into the 40s and sometimes even higher than that, but we rarely get down below the 20% mark in this last year. Here we have a couple that go down here, but I think this is a post, yeah, that's a result of the surge that came after July 4th. So we'll look at it that way. Basically what that tells me is it's still a portion of the river is moving very quickly, and a portion of the river is moving fairly slowly. This number right here, 317, that's stunning. That's the total weekly pending and pending inspection versus those that are coming on market. So that's what's showing the indicator here. Now, how does that really play out then against what we've seen in the last 4 or 5 years? So over here at 2019, the new pendings, and this is for December 10th to January 1st, we still have 7 days left on the calendar, but we have 167 new pendings, and that is the highest number, even taking into account that 215, 216, 217, and 18, they all had the full time to cure out their numbers. 167 clearly is the leader. 142 was the lowest number in 2017. For those that went off market in 6 days or less, 2017 also was the lowest number, 39, 36, and 28. Here we are at 44 again with 7 days left. We're going to see those numbers continue to go higher, so I think we're going to have a rather unusual year here, a year end, which may be a foreshadowing of what we're going to see coming up in January. We've also got the highest number of new actives took place in 2015, and we're at 81, which is the lowest number. Now that number is going to come up because, again, 7 days more. So I wouldn't be surprised that we crest the 90 mark and potentially punch over the 100 mark in terms of that. But for all intents and purposes, even though we saw an interesting market correction starting in mid-2018, these numbers here for 2018 really don't reflect that. Let's go take a look at what that looked like. First of all, let's take a look at Alan Pope's numbers for the end of the year here. This is blue are new actives coming on market, and red are pendings, and this is broken down by month. So we can see here that we had the highest number. We first crested pendings over, new actives over pendings right here in June of 2018. And sure enough, when I go take a look at our sales price, that's when all of a sudden, it's right here, that's when we started seeing a dropping in price. And we saw a market correction in some of the hotter areas. Here's, let's take a look at the green number here. That's Central North Ballard at 852 at crest. And its lowest point was at 725. It's a $125,000 differential. We've seen some recovery on that number. If I look at the black, that is overall Seattle, and that, let's see here, 758, call it 760, lowest number then down to 670. So going back up here, we're seeing absorption of listings coming back up as well. And so this is going to start showing favor towards sellers again. Median price, we just talked about. Homes for sale, our volume overall really crested starting in mid-July, June of last year, of 2018, that is, when I say last year, dropped down in February and then came back up again. Same thing for the Ballard, Ravenna region here in the green. And our number of sales, we're seeing that come down a little bit here in this last bit. So getting back over to our stats tracker, that's what I'm seeing here for the end of the year. We're headed towards the seller's market somewhat. So the final question here is, when does the market actually pick up and what does it do? Let's go ahead and take a look here. And if we look historically, in terms of just the volume of listings, which is the blue numbers here, we've got in December and January, 586 and 584. Here's December and January, 342 to 487. Here's 440 dropping to 374. But we see here 374 to 387, 436 to 504. So it really is this January, February. That's pretty typical. Same thing here. The numbers stay fairly low for the first couple of months. We had a higher inventory, obviously, in the beginning of 2019 as a result of the surge here that took place. But still, it didn't rise that much until really into March. Now let's look at the pendings and take a look at that. And we see a drastic jump here. February, March, April, May. So if you're a buyer and you're wondering when you're going to see listings, it's going to be around that time. But unfortunately, at the same time, you're going to see a number of pendings coming up. Now let's go take a look at the same thing in February, March. Look at pendings only, and they start heading up about 100. There's almost 200 and cresting at 975. Same thing here in terms of pendings. Inventory being pretty slim there. So it's pretty typical that you're going to see slower inventory coming on market in the first 2 months, and then we start seeing a typical rise in inventory. But I guess what I'm looking at here, and I'm reading this as I see it, it's not like I'm versed on this on the front end, but inventory just simply doesn't have that drastic of spiking. But we do see some fairly significant pending spiking taking place. So if I'm a buyer and a good property hits there in the first part of the year, I'm less impacted by the volume of pendings as I am if I am getting into doing it in the May-June mark. That's historically for those 4 or 5 years where we had the biggest amount of continued rise in price. Over here, a little bit different story here in this last year. This very surprising spike here in February to March, softening and then holding out right around 1,000. May, June, coming back down into the 800s. But interestingly, your inventory somewhat followed that. And if I go back and look at our stats tracker here, and bring this over, I continued, even though we were back in the beginning of the year. Let's go back to the beginning of the year here. I think we started right around May, April on this. This is a new chart that we put together. Yeah, we'll start right around there. We still had, boy, look at those. This is the 6-day numbers here. We weren't even using those high reds yet. Let me go ahead and drop those in. That right there, that's seller market in terms of the percentage of 6 days, and in terms of the amount of inventory that was in pending status versus that which was on market. That was also very healthy in the 80% plus range. Here we started dropping down in the 70s, and we get as low as the 60 mark there, 62. Here's 59, 56. Probably related, yeah, that's related to the post July 4th surge. Holds in the 60s for quite some while. High 50s, back into the 60s, then starts rising, and the yellow means we're getting pretty hot here. This blue indicates that that's a holiday, and so I'd like to keep that aware. And then this, I'll call this holiday fairly soon too. I'll start dropping some blue numbers in there. All right, I'm not sure how many minutes we are. My thing is not showing me the recording time, but I'm sure I'm over. But if this is of interest to you, I'm sure you stuck in there with me. MLS Market Watch shows real drastic drop of listings coming on market. It halved once again from, where's our numbers? 12, 56 down to 12, down, then 22, and then 19, and then 9. But the pendings in those similar weeks, 200 pendings, 179 pendings, 170 pendings, 41 pendings. Boy, there's a drop. 41 pendings, and 48 pendings, and then 46 pendings. So there's our December market right there in a nutshell, week 1, 2, and 3, essentially. And you can see your pendings came way down in terms of what we call the MLS Market Watch. They look at a different set of numbers than we do. All right, so that's it. That and $1.50 will buy a cup of coffee, as they say, but we do want to keep our eyes on what's happening. And what will be very interesting will be that first 2 and 3, second, third, and fourth week of January, when we start watching the market and see what it's going to be doing. Talk to you soon. Hope you have a very wonderful, happy end of the year. Bruce Ferris, Windermere Real Estate. Take care. Bye-bye.